I'm curious to know if in that transition you got rich when it was bought. Did you get new equity
I
from
mean,
that?
me?
Yeah.
No, no. That was the so the whole story is that the I2M is a semiconductor design house. It was founded by some former Philips NXP guys, and they did chip design for a third party, so for people who wanted to build a chip, let's say. And there was a a daughter of I2M, which was called I2M Medical, who did kind of design services for medical device companies. So building wearable devices and measurement amplifiers and all that kind of stuff. And there was a daughter company. I wasn't part of that. I'm not one of the founders of that company. Um, and during that, well, those design projects, and because Egbert, who is the CTO and a former colleague of Luke and myself, he's a chip designer, and he really thought, okay, this amplifier stuff, it doesn't make sense to do all the analog hardware design magic on a board every time again. It's just too complicated for many people, and it makes devices really big and large and bulky and difficult to maintain if you have to buy all the off the shelf components, etc. So then the idea was born to put it in a chip. And then Sencure was founded as a independent startup in 2021. Yeah, 2021, with some VCs on board. So we got a little bit of money, and that's when I joined the company as a product manager. I was doing marketing and sales at TMSI, but I wanted to go back a little bit into the technical stuff, engineering stuff.
So as a marketer, you'll appreciate this question. Help me understand, who is your target? What is the benefit of what you're working on? And why should we believe that your idea is something that people should be paying attention to?
For the what we're building now, yeah, you mean, so the chip. Yeah. So
So who do you want to sell to?
our core, there are two industries we focus on. That's one is the medical device industry, of course, because they can benefit of, well, innovating their medical devices, making them smaller, etc. And the other one is the consumer electronics, which is nowadays quite popular, with all the sensors you have in your watch and phone and whatnot.
So are you looking to sell in medical devices? Are you looking to sell to manufacturers?
Yeah.
And Andre here is a contract manufacturer. So
Yeah.
would you potentially want to sell your chip and get him to begin to integrate it into devices that he's making?
Yeah, exactly that. So those are the customer profiles we are looking at if you look at it from a marketing perspective. So it's medical device manufacturers, contract engineering companies, and consumer tech. But
So that I can
that's a different industry.
visualize a little bit. Can you give me an example of a product for which your chip would be ideally suited? Something familiar.
Think about a heart monitoring Holter kind of device. So the device that monitors your heart for 24 hours, 84 hours, or 48 hours, I have to say. You have to think about something like that, which is, well, rather big, and you can reduce it to maybe even a patch size device. That's the thing you have to, well, think about.
Well,
But you can
I approach this as the lowest common denominator person, i.e. the dumbest person in the room. I think of chips as pretty damn small to begin with. You're even damn smaller, so much so
no,
it makes a difference that I should switch my chip from them to
no.
you.
If you look at chips, they are small, but if you look at them at a device level, they are more or less all the same size, right? It doesn't really matter if they're a centimeter by centimeter or half a centimeter by half a centimeter. It doesn't make a difference. The thing is that if you want to measure with sufficient accuracy, it's usually just, if you consume more power, you can do it more accurately. but we developed it in a way that we use very little power, but also achieve a very high signal quality. So, and power consumption translates to battery size. If you, we were talking to one medical device manufacturer, and he told us that his device, which is a brain monitoring device, is 90%, so 90% battery. All the other stuff is electronics. And with our solution, we consume like 20 times less power than the main competitor in the market. They can reduce the battery with more than 60%. Or
Who's the main competitor in the market, a brand that we might know?
yeah, Texas Instruments.
We've heard of them.
Yeah, so it's not a small player, of course.
Or analog devices.
Analog devices is the other one, of course. Yeah.
Your value proposition is our product consumes a 20th the power of a Texas Instrument chip.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Wow.
but
And there's no one else doing anything like that.
Not that we are aware of.
Wow.
There are a few others who make their own products, let's say, with probably looking at the specs with a proprietary chip, but they don't sell it to others.
Can you give me any sense, again, as a very layman who has no understanding of engineering and can't even screw in a light bulb properly? What is the concept that makes you 20 times more efficient than the biggest player? What's just broadly, what is your insight?
Yeah, it's really in the design of the chip to do smart things there. There's also a part that comes from more, well, if you look at the TI, for example, they are not a medical, they don't have a medical expertise or viewpoint. And we come from I come from a medical device background, and all my colleagues, or many of my colleagues as well. So we know what to do to comply to all the medical device regulations, so patient safety stuff, IEC norms, etc. And what we did is that we integrated some stuff in the chip that makes it easier to comply to those regulations, but we also make sure have a patented circuit around our chip that allows to comply to the regulations without adding a lot of stuff that will interfere with your signals, let's say. So it doesn't make your signals worse, whereas Texas Instruments, well, doesn't do that. So you need to, so we can make more noise in the chip, and noise and power, that's a hand-in-hand relation. So we make a little bit more noise in the chip than the TI part, but in the total system architecture, we consume 20 times less.
Are there smarter
and all the real details why it's so power efficient, part of it is also that the TI part is like 15 years old or something.
If I may.
Yeah, I was going to call on you, George, but also this is the part where I can see where this is going, and I encourage folks who understand what the fuck he's talking about to ask him questions. George, we'll start with you.
Yes, if I may, you can call me the Duval advocate. In regards to the major chip players not having their footprint in healthcare, I beg to differ. I know TI and Analog Devices have their own initiatives internally to create it. So I don't see where the differentiation you're talking about, making your chip a little more regulatory compliant than theirs. The concern I have is you're talking about noise, signal to noise ratio, and all that stuff for especially small signal interpretation of EEG or ECG or bioelectronics coming off of the body. This is something that I know that TI and Analog Devices have been priding themselves on, differentiating themselves on from other vendors, and it's always a race. So, you know, I don't know your chip, I don't know the specs, but you know, it'd be interesting to see that. You know, yeah, you're a lower power footprint. That's definitely a plus, but the rubber hits the road when it's the signal to noise ratio, the ability to interpret the signals to meaningful, quantifiable actions for, you know, the medical community.
Yeah, well, the first part about the TI not being, well, they of course have their application teams. I think even Analog Devices, they recently released something like their
Yes.
own product even in the medical field. So
I worked for
Yeah.
Analog Devices previously and have worked alongside as a medical device developer with TI Analog Devices. And they're both like definitely a head-to-head race on who can supply the better biometric signals coming off of the body.
yeah, maybe it's good to if we're talking signal to noise ratio with our chip compared to the TI part, we are similar in many aspects, and there's one that we are beyond them, and that's the when it comes to compatibility with, well, dry electrodes, so not gel-based electrodes. Gel-based electrodes, I think we perform more or less the same. For dry electrodes, we are way better in terms of, well, artifacts and stuff like that.
George, knowing what you know, when you hear something like this is 20 times better, is your reaction like, what? How? I don't get it.
Yeah,
Like,
the hair on the back of my neck goes, yeah, show me.
Yeah.
I can imagine that you're a little bit skeptic about it, but it's true. The people at Analog Devices and Texas Instruments, they don't really know the physiological measurements. They see a human body as a kind of generating electrical signal thing, but it's more than that.
I worked with the team, Digital Healthcare Systems, directly that was looking at the biomedical system. We were we had a lot of biomedical people that were actually looking at the physiological aspect of it, developing the algorithms, understanding the physiological nature of that. And so there are teams inside these companies that are looking at that. And don't get me wrong. I mean, kudos. Great, you guys are developing this, but don't underestimate those giants. They have poured a lot of money into doing this as well. So good luck.
The dumb thing is that at my company, we're redeveloping an ECG system, and he's on the other side of the road, and I just regularly grab a cup of coffee with him. But we now choose for a TI chip, and that the only reason for that is that we now develop it, and we have to know that it's still there in 10 years.
Yep.
So Benjamin still has to prove that he can conquer the market and is not away in a few years. On the other hand, we're part of DEMCON, and I know that Sencure is doing a few, how do you call it? They do new projects with this chip, so I'm also on the sideline a little bit involved. But that's it. They have to really show themselves that they're better than the rest.
Yeah.
Andre?
Yeah, and Joe, you mentioned that we're a manufacturer, but we also design some products from the ground up. And I appreciate what George and Luke said, but candidly, Benjamin, I'm very interested in what you're talking about, because we have requests sometimes from people for a fundamental design of our product, and the power requirements sometimes limit the amount of functionality that we can design into a unit, because it has to meet certain physical parameters or ergonomic parameters, let's say. So I was very interested to learn about what you're doing, and I understand skepticism, but I'm very open to seeing what it be, because we're always interested in differentiating our designs.
Yeah, that's of course very good to hear. But it's also it's very hard to go into the details of why I think what we did is special, but it's also I think that Luke also has quite a point with we built this chip from the ground up, coming from, well, let's say things need to be, well, wearable devices need to be smaller, but they also need to have a certain signal to noise ratio. I mean, I think there are a million chips around there that can measure heart rate, right? I mean, that's probably every ADC on board of a microcontroller can do that. But really measure a high quality ECG, but EEG is even more challenging. And that's also my background, by the way, that I come from There's also my specialization as biomedical engineer to process EEG data and having to deal with all the artifacts and stuff that you encounter during those measurements. So that's also my let's say contribution to the chip. I'm not a chip designer, so I didn't design the chip, but I could tell the guys, okay, this is how people use it, and this is what they would like to achieve. And that's also what we see now. Last week I was at CES, and you see all the headphone manufacturers now including EEG in their headphones. Sometimes I'm even surprised by how they look at it, because then you ask them, okay, but what do you want to do with it, or what are you going to do with the data? And they say, yeah, well, we will figure something out. It's really strange. They don't even have a use case in many cases. I think some of them have, but all the rest is just following. But yeah, you cannot have a device or a chip inside that consumes the amount that the TI part does.
Have you done anything in the applications of contactless ECG, where you see this in some automobiles where it actually picks up the ECG signal capacitively coupled through the clothing into the seating or something along those lines?
No, not yet. Or not yet. There are no immediate plans for that, but no, we haven't looked into that.
Jonathan, why do you write what you do?
Oh, I was just thinking, if you're focused on low power applications, and I would imagine that since the eyewear is going to be, or vision technology is going to be the next phase, we see how Meta is doing a great job in that. It just seems logical that you would go in that direction. Headphone application, I would say no, but eyewear application, definitely, because that's going to be the new interface. And they're going to need low power.
Yeah, I've seen a few, we're even we had a meeting at CES that there was a demonstrator device that had all kinds of electrodes incorporated in smart glasses, and they were still using something that connected externally to the shoulder or to the neck. I'm not completely sure. That was quite bulky thing. They recently were able to reduce the power consumption of the signal processor that they use, so the AI processor or whatever it did, but they're still struggling basically with the acquisition part, which was based on a TI chip. So we are now looking to for us it's difficult because we are startups, so we have to pick our customers very carefully. We cannot do every nice looking scientific project, right? But you also need compelling demonstrators to really showcase what the technology can do.
Well, and I would also argue that you should maybe not be so focused on medical, but look at consumer applications like anxiety or some other type of way to hit higher volume, a more specific application that your chip can produce under the power constraints that you have a specific advantage for. And then with the profit of that, you get your way back into the medical world, because the medical world is, how many companies fail because they just can't get off the ground because it goes so slow, whereas consumer products can go much, much faster. So I'm always a big fan of pushing for, let's say anxiety is something that you can actually capture, or tension or stress, and you can integrate it into the mouse of a computer or into the eyewear of the latest, glass eyewear, and it's picking up, some particular signal that you can capture and deliver back as a feedback mechanism. I think you have a better chance of making revenue, getting some licensing fees or some other types of costs, having support for the production capacity so that you have things that you need to produce paid for by large corporations that have the money to go explore, versus like waiting 2-3 years for medical device companies to like get on board.
Benjamin, how many employees do you have? How much funding do you have? Is it seed round? Where are you?
We're now with 25 people.
25, you say?
Yeah, 25. 8 of them are chip designers. I think depends on how you count exactly, but 8 of them are application people, and then you have 8 or 9 people around that. We just closed. How did we call it? This is an A2 round. On the internet, you also find a B round, but that's all more, well, it's detailed stuff that's I won't go into that. That's more.
How much have you raised so far?
Say, well, almost 10 million.
Okay. And early prospecting, you've identified some collaborators, strategic partners, potential customers?
Yeah, we have. Well, we collaborate during the first version of the chip. We collaborated a lot with the mother company, I2M. So they did a lot of the design back then. We are now going to do it completely by ourselves because we have a full up and running chip team now. And we have a joint development agreement or a joint development partnership with NXP. So we also run in their quality system and we run in their fabs with our chip.
I'm going to call on some suspected question askers. Jorg, Rick, and Eddie, do you have something you'd like to contribute or ask?
Yeah, my key question is, so you mentioned something about patches and then you said headphones. So are all of your applications that you're looking at right now external to the body? Or are you looking at anything that's implantable?
No, that's not part of the we sometimes have some wild ideas, but no, we need to be really focused and we really stay on the outside of the body for now.
Okay, yeah. So and are you communicating your signals via Bluetooth or?
No, we just do the amplification and we are completely independent of a processor that the customer wants to use. The experience is that they all want something different. They all have their own platform.
Jorg?
Yeah, I've developed wearables for Philips and Analog and also Boston Scientific, although those were more or less called insertables as opposed to that because we was an endo group. But yeah, interesting. I'd like to learn more about your product line and how that might differentiate with what's out there. I've done a lot in the wearable space, and new applications. Part of the problem is everybody and their brother is doing a watch or a patch.
Yeah.
And how do you differentiate that between the consumer grade and especially the consumer rush and the worried well that's going after that market. And the push that I was doing and have been involved in is clinically viable, study grade wearables that are used more for the biomedical community and the research in that department. So be interested to learn more. I didn't mean I didn't mean to come on so hard.
No problem. There's I have a deck that's free to share with anyone, so I can just I can put it in the.
Well, I connected with you on LinkedIn. So
okay.
Accept my
I'll send it to you.
Yeah, thank you.
Rick, you have something?
Most of the time, I just keep in touch with my electrical engineering friends in device development because they develop something truly amazing. And very often just say, well, we just want to make sure nothing happens to this. And so that's when I get involved. But I love stuff like this because it's just creating a brand new environment. Chips that use less power, that have more sensitivity, that have better signal to noise ratio, and therefore a wider range of things they can communicate and process simultaneously. I don't even know how they work, but I'm amazed at the things they do, and they keep producing brand new devices. I wear glasses, and these are kind of tiny glasses. They're not very large, but I can imagine the time when we could have a chip that could process efficiently enough so that audio and visual feedback would all be located in here. And I already use audio to create a lot of things with my clients, and I'm just looking forward to this. This is really fantastic. I think if you can get these things to where they devour less electricity, we're going to have an entirely new range of applications, both personal, industrial, defense, everything. So those are a lot of words for not being able to communicate anything technical to this discussion at all,
Well
because
done.
I really don't know how they work.
The most exciting eyewear thing I've seen recently is an application for closed captioning for deaf people.
Oh boy.
Wow.
Oh boy. So we won't have, when someone's speaking, we won't have half the screen taken up by somebody doing sign language? That would be kind of cool. Just to be able to have it scroll across.
Benjamin,
That's
are there some aspects of your deck that you think would be illustrative for our group here today?
You can see now searches for the deck for dumb people.
It's really difficult to
That's fine. That's fine. How
yeah,
about what kind of timetables, recognizing they all slip? Say we're the most bullish group you meet. We can't wait until this is available. When can we place our first order?
Yeah, that's actually a good question. It was also mentioned before about the timelines of medical stuff, etc. This is when we started this adventure, let's say 4 years ago. We really thought, okay, we're going to do the medical space and forget the consumer space. They are not ready. It's not going to work. They will never include this in a smartwatch or whatever. So we're going to do medical. But if you then really dive into that, what will happen? You have a chip, and they need to integrate it in a device that takes them, well, if it's a simple one, maybe 3 months, 6 months. If it's a complicated one, takes them a year or so. And then they need to do the whole approval stuff. If you're in the EU with the MDR, you're, well, maybe 2-3 years. So if you all add that together, you're on the market in 4 years or something. You don't have any volume until that point as a chip manufacturer, and they're not going to pay you a lot of money, and they don't have the volume yet. So they will buy 1,000 chips or 10,000 if it's a very, very big customer. You will not make any money out of that. So that's also why we diverted a little bit and looked more into the consumer space, because they can go a lot faster. If you look at our timetable right now, we have the first version of the chip. It works, but it has some quirks, and there are some issues with the how many of them work before they can be shipped out. So we need to do a redesign on that. That's ongoing at the moment, and we expect to have that finalized by the end of the year and have it mass production ready. Yeah, let's say early next year. In the meantime, we are collaborating with, it's now 8 partners that already started the design of medical devices. A few of them are not medical. And they do it at their own risk. So we are always very honest about that about the status of the chip, and also the concern that Luke already mentioned, that how certain are you that we still exist in 10 years? That's a risk they are willing to take. And we sometimes even say, don't do it, just buy the TI part for now. It's not ready for your application yet, but they still want to do it. So apparently, it sometimes feels, I'm doing sales or marketing pitches, but it sometimes feels like I'm convincing the customer not to do it, but they still want to do it. So that's actually kind of crazy, but it also is a let's say evidence that what we build is kind of what they are looking for. So long story short, about a year from now, it should be available.
Patricia?
Just a quick, if you were going to give me like a couple bullet points of the product, what would those be for my short attention span? Say we're walking, like the elevator pitch, say we're walking away, and you wanted to give me a couple bullets, what would those be?
Yeah, so what we've built is an amplifier chip for electrophysiological measurements, with very high signal quality, combined with a very low power consumption, enabling much smaller wearable devices, the development of much smaller wearable devices that still provide very high signal quality. I would say that's in 2 sentences what we did.
Okay, thank you. And the application can be in various devices?
Yeah, it's everything that measures bioelectrical signals, so like ECG, EMG, so muscle activity, or brain EEG.
And are you currently in collaboration? Okay, now thank you. Those are the bullet points I was looking for. Are you in collaboration with laboratories too that are looking at these types of research?
Sorry, can you repeat?
There's labs that there's a lot of labs that I know in university settings too that are looking at different voltage gated channels and things like that. Are you in collaboration with any of those top research organizations?
We collaborate a lot with the University of Twente, which is really close to our office, and also has a very strong chip design faculty. Yeah, and there are a few test labs, but I wouldn't call them. They are not really university related, let's say. But obviously all the testing and stuff, some of the things you cannot do by yourself, so we outsource that, and we work together with partners.
Thank you.
Preferably close by, but some of them are a little bit far away.
Thank you.
Have you worked with IMEC or University of Leuven?
No. We talked to the IMEC guys quite often actually, but we didn't collaborate with them.
The output, is it analog only or is it digitized?
It's digitized. It's 24-bit data stream.
So last week's speaker, Mark Omo from Marcus Engineering, was talking to us about post-quantum cryptography in medical devices and the NIST standards that are going into effect, and the security, the cybersecurity of that. And I also know that, they call themselves as an engineering company, the breaker of chips. And that they're able to reverse engineer and or reuse devices that are not supposed to be reusable by breaking the chips. I'm interested if this has any bearing whatsoever on this conversation, number one. And number two, if so, how?
So they trick a chip, let's say, that should be a single-use thing to do multiple uses, or how do I? Is that
right? Single use to reuse. So a single use device to reusable.
Yeah, I'm not sure. at what point you would normally implement such a thing in a device, if that's more on processor level or already on our because yeah, my colleagues will kill me if I say this, but it's more or less a dumb ADC, just digitizes data that it picks up. So I'm not sure if we don't do a lot of smart stuff, let's say, on the processing part in our chip, but we give it to a processor. So I can imagine that on that part you need to do a lot of security stuff as well. But I'm not sure if that should be on our side as well. Haven't got a lot of questions in that direction yet. So
Just curious. Thank you.
yeah, thank you.
I don't know if you saw in the comments that I had written, honey, I shrunk the devices. I think that would be a nice tagline.
Yeah, I saw it. This is nice one.
Luke, did Benjamin hit all the points you anticipated?
No, not really, because one of the strong points is that it's much easier to comply to all the medical standards with their chip than with others, because for our ECG system now, we already have 5 meetings with 3 people or 5 people just to tick off all the things that are that need to be investigated or that are not easy to implement, and that is it's a breeze with their chip. At least what I know about what one of their customers is saying. And the other one is that it's not only very useful for wearables for up to 8 channel signal, but you can daisy chain them easily to how many?
Officially 32, but there's no reason why it couldn't be more.
Okay, 32 times 8. So if you have if you want to measure on grids on our complete head caps, then not only for a stationary device, all the power adds up really quickly, because if you have, say, 32 times 2 or 3 watts, or you have 32 times a very small amount, you don't have to feed that from the device as well. And in electrical physical measurements, the leakage current towards the mains is one of the main sources of that you get 50 or 60 hertz in your signal. And with their device, with some less power, you also need less isolated power, which means less leakage currents, means a better signal as well. So it's not only for wearables, it's only very great for if you have a lot of channels together. And also, there's one thing that's called reference amplifying. That's if all your electrodes are well placed on your body and there's no one hanging loose or whatever, then the best way to measure your devices is to compare it to your average of all your signals. And that is implemented in the chip directly, and it's not implemented in all other chips. It is a niche. It's a niche for head caps or for grid measurements, but it's still there for if you have a lot of channels and a lot of signals. But I guess the main point is that it's a breeze to work with it. They have a nice, I would say, nice document how to implement it for medical reasons. Anything
No,
else?
I think I
Benjamin?
agree. That was also a little bit the aim.
I still hope that Analog Devices walks by these days and say, oh, that's a nice one, let's buy the company. Then point 1, Benjamin will be very rich, I guess. And point 2, the first thing I do is walk to him and say, let's start a company with your chip. Let's make some devices.
Yeah, well, that could happen.
Like Philips,
I don't know.
Philips might be more interested, to be honest with you. Because they do a lot in the wearable and patient monitoring space and getting that particular level of biosignals off. But yeah. So that's why NXP, which is a spinoff, of Philips, I think is a good path forward. So yeah.
Benjamin, if you're available next week, we're talking about bridging the gap between design and regulatory. That may be interesting for you. Do you have any closing comments for us today?
No, I really enjoyed the discussion and also the critical points, which are always, well, you can only learn from it. And I also see
You guys thought you have a
some
few-
comments in the chat that are also helpful. I will definitely reach out to many of you.
Yeah. Like you have a few invitations already floating into your LinkedIn. I'd
Yeah.
like to ask Nikhil to say hi. I think you've not introduced yourself to the group yet.
I'm sorry?
I'm inviting our new friend to say hello. He just
Hello.
yeah, hi. Tell us about you.
Thank you for the invite. Great to be part of this group. I'll just give a brief background, not very long. So I'm an orthopedic surgeon by background and based out of Birmingham in the UK. I previously worked with two notified bodies, so I'm quite well versed with the regulations around medical devices. And I agree with Jonathan's point of view. The time to introduce any new technology into this space is, I think one of the issues is with the notified bodies, but I'm hoping to lend my expertise now to bridge that gap or shorten that gap to sort of bring the knowledge out to the wider public from the notified body perspective. So I currently work for a CRO, which is a medtech company. We run clinical trials largely in France, but in Spain and Germany, and now in the UK as well. We have a AI arm, which is Milo, which provides a bespoke sort of solution for clinical trials, which doesn't require integration into the EHR. And we're trying to improve that, and hopefully it should hit the market very soon. Yeah, that's sort of a brief outline.
Thank you. And while you were talking, you mentioned orthopedic surgeon, so I actually gave you the email address of our friend Alyssa Huffman. She's the CEO of Illuminate, and she's winning all sorts of grants and awards and recognition for a spinal screw she's working to bring to market. So that may be of particular interest to you.
Yeah, thank you. That's great.
It's also noteworthy that he's going to be a workshop leader and speaker at 10X, which I hadn't shared with anybody yet. So
I'm making the connection now. Good. I'm glad you guys connected and made that happen.
Thank you.
Actually, so that reminds me, I'll put this for everybody. For those of you who are coming, this is the link for the group rate for the Hyatt, if you've not taken advantage of that yet. And it'll be here sooner than you think. So Benjamin, of course, if you want to, I don't know if Luke has any frequent flyer miles or something where, the passenger comes for just 99 quid or euro or whatever the hell you guys use over there. But I know he's on his way out to see us, and he can come all the way from the Netherlands, but apparently the trip from New Jersey is just too arduous for some of the group members.
The fact that you keep pushing this guy to come makes me want him to come, because I have to meet him in person, because you really, really want him to come.
I really do.
That's right.
Every year he tells me to screw myself. It really, it's
It's
hurtful.
such a nice area. Bring
Is
his
anyone planning to be at MD&M in first week of February?
I have
Medical Device and Manufacturing Show in Anaheim.
one of my clients is going.
Okay, well, I'll be there, and so I was hoping Andre might, show up for
He's
that.
not going
but
anywhere.
I guess
but
not.
I'll go to MD&M East at Javits Center.
Yeah, it's not the same. It's not as good.
I know.
He needs an invitation to go to the next room. He's willing to sit at his fucking desk, and that's it. It's disgusting.
We'll just pick him up.
I'm glad I'm giving everybody something to talk about.
Grouse about. Put Mrs. Domino on. She's more reasonable.
She's not here, sorry.
She never is.
I'm missing your tie.
Cheers.
Wow.
Oh, no, there is a tie, but it's you have.
Oh, wow, an incognito tie.
It's tone on tone.
Wow, camouflage.
Very,
Wow.
very current. He's very current on the style.
And I'm even
Yep.
more impressed because, you know, I have an eye for these things. It's the first time that, like, there was a question about whether or not he was wearing a tie. He's always got some degree of contrast. Maybe there's something going on in New Jersey about which we are fully unaware.
You're amazing, Joe.
Perhaps. Benjamin, we're grateful for your time today. Of course, the invitation is extended to you if you want to come out to see us in May. We'd love to have you. And Luke, thank you for bringing your friend to introduce to our little community here.
Okay.
Joe Hage and Joe Hage Enterprises and Sean Smith Enterprises. This has been this week's MDG Premium, and we'll see you next week. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks
Thanks.
a lot.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye bye.